This is going to be an unbelievably unpopular video to make.
What's going on, guys? Tony K. That content creator is called Ben Bateman. He is someone who's in the creator fund with Wizards of the Coast. In his video, he talks about how the 2026 lineup containing 4 Universe Beyond, 3 in-universe sets for Magic the Gathering isn't as much of a problem as people would have you believe. Now, for context real quick, this is the 2026 lineup. So we know for sure these two are in-universe. We know for sure that Universes Beyond, Superheroes, The Hobbit, and then Star Trek are not in universe, and we're all assuming that Reality Fracture is in universe. So that's where we're starting this video at, just so we're all on the same. Now, Ben, similar to me, has been playing for a very long time. He says Ice Age is when he remembers starting to open packs. Mine was around that time. I got really into Magic shortly after Ice Age in Mercadian, and I've been a fan of the game ever since. And he does make a comment about Magic is forever evolving. I remember the same things he talks about, where it was only 3 sets a year, and they really had a lot of time to breathe and develop and get tested out and play. Some of you may not know this, but there was a time where Fat Packs actually came with the corresponding set novel, which was one of the coolest things ever. We also used to have these things called tournament packs, where it was 75 cards, all in one brick. Really cool stuff. And they've done some cool stuff throughout the years. I just want to point out, he is correct, Magic is always evolving. And his stance is that he's heard a lot of negative about Universes Beyond and how many sets they're releasing, but he sees it as a positive because you're getting more people into the game. WotC's reporting more money that they're making. So from that perspective, I can understand where he comes to that conclusion. This is where I disagree with him, though. And this is where I think a lot more Magic players are on my side of the conversation than his, but I'm not even trying to argue with him. I love his content. It's just this video specifically stood out. So everything I'm going to say here, I feel is fair to say and is based on experience, things that I know, stuff like that. The first thing is we can all safely say that an average Magic player like me, who just gets together and plays EDH with their friends, maybe I get to go play Pioneer or Legacy at a local game store once in a while, I do not get to experience Magic the same way someone like Ben does. And by that I mean I don't have access to free product from WotC. I don't have access to multiple Magic cons throughout the year, whether it's paid sponsorship sending me or out of my own pocket. And also, if you know who Ben is, you know that he's one of the people who's been doing that huge chaos draft where it's like one pack from every set in Magic's history is on the wall, and then you randomly get assigned one to go. I don't interact with Magic the same way as a Ben Bateman does. Ben Bateman doesn't interact with Magic the same way that I do, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just stating that for my perception here. And if you're confused why that matters, go look up how much it would cost to buy any single pack from any of the reserve list sets or the first 5 or 6 sets right after the reserve list, and then ask yourself, do you have that kind of money? That's kind of where that difference comes in, is money and access. Now, he talks about how for about the first 25 to 28 years of the game, we got 3, maybe 4 standard issued sets each year, which now you're looking at it in 2026, we're up to 7. That in itself should tell you that there might be a little bit of an issue. You also have local game stores, 2 of which I know directly have said this, and many have posted online how whether it's the constant barrage of more sets or the price to get that stuff, it's really tough. There's actually a game store in Champaign-Urbana that I used to go to a lot, and after we moved out of the area, I only really got to visit once in a while. I went back about 6 months ago and I said, you got any Magic booster packs? I'd love to buy a couple packs, support the store. And the lady who owns the store said that based on how hard it is to get product from WotC, compete with Amazon dumps, and then the WPN access, she said, we're just done trying to sell Magic products. Additionally, most store owners will tell you that they don't make a lot of money on the booster packs. They make more money on the singles. But if one of the things that is meant to help get the game out there to people, like local game stores, if you have a great number of them struggling with the release schedule as well as the price point for them to get in on it as at the distributor price, you got to start considering like, oh, maybe this is a problem. Now, I can understand why some people would say, well, you don't have to interact with every set. You don't have to play every set. I don't think that is a very fair comment to make. Now, WotC, to their credit, does a great job of manufacturing as well as benefiting off of FOMO around the game. Think about Final Fantasy and how popular of an IP it was, but also how hard it was to get it. There was almost a joy or a feeling of relief, if you will, if you're able to get your hands on any of the sealed product, especially if it was at like that MSRP. For an EDH player, it's probably a little bit easier to skip a set, but I think for a 60 card player, it's a little bit harder because sometimes those cards will hit and impact your format, as well as standard. If you're going to play standard or draft, it's really frustrating to think, well, I can't interact with this set because the next one's coming up in 2 weeks. And I don't expect everyone to have empathy or sympathy for that stance. But what I will say is, he makes a comment about how there's more people coming into the game, which I think is a good aspect of these IPs, these universes beyond, is that now we're getting more people in the game. And the more people you get in the game that have good access to pieces from the game, I think the better it is for everybody. I've been saying for years that Shocklands should be printed into the ground. They should never be more than $10 for the most expensive one. And Fetchlands should be printed into the ground. They should never be more than $20 for the most expensive one. This is coming from someone who has thousands of dollars in sealed product from years of collecting, as well as reserve lists and fetches and duels and all that shit. I've got it also, but it doesn't matter to me because the more people that are interacting with the game, the better. The other side of that argument, though, is let's take an IP, Final Fantasy. I am curious to know how many people that come into Magic because it's got this new IP actually stay or even open and play the product. Now, I would be curious to know how many people that are coming into the game because these new IPs are actually staying after the IP kind of rotates out, as well as actually opening and playing them. One of my closest friends is a big Final Fantasy fan, as well as he knows how to play Magic. He doesn't really care for it, but he bought a bunch of booster boxes, and he said if you ever want to, you can open them, but they're just sitting in his closet. So he's not actually playing the game, and I am sure of the fact that there are other people who are buying the product and they're collecting it for display for whatever reason, but they're not actually physically playing the game, which I do think is a negative for the health of the game. And honestly, when we talk about health of the game, one of the things that means the most to me is how much the average player can access this game. Because the average player who stays in the game and plays for years and years and years, that's who I think is great for the health of the game. So when we look at some of the most recent, I think this was 2024, this is the average median income for a single full-time worker in that age range. And like, I'm not trying to get political here or talk about world events, but we all know that inflation's a factor. It's really expensive to do anything, and salaries have not kept pace with inflation historically over time. So if a game that you love is becoming more expensive and also putting out more product that you can't keep up with, do you think that's good for the health of the game? This is all just to say, and like I said at the beginning, Ben interacts with the game in a much different way than your average Magic player does. I don't think he's necessarily wrong. I disagree with him, but I don't think he's wrong because from his perspective, the game is great right now. And it's still a very fun game. But we've heard for years about product fatigue, and it's real. It's very real. And I could make a video talking about how the last few years of in-universe sets weren't even really that great on their own, and Magic is really riding the coattails of all these different IPs. We could have a great discussion about how Spider-Man collector booster boxes have gone down almost half in price since pre-release because it's not that great of a set. And I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. Hopefully, if you made it this far in the video, you have some follow-up questions or some things you'd like to go more in detail about. Again, I don't think Ben's a bad guy. I just disagree with his stance here. But a lot of that's based on I'm in more of the common folk Magic experience. I think he's more at the higher end. I appreciate you guys so much, and thanks for watching.